Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Dana Haggard, Professor of Management and Curator of this video. As I mentioned in a previous video, there are many different actions that individuals can take to improve the effectiveness of any team in which they are involved, regardless of whether or not they are the designated team leader. In this video, we will cover the roles that individuals can play on a team. Keep in mind that as we go through these roles, that they are not necessarily mutually exclusive. In other words, people play multiple roles within a single team. It is also possible for a person to play a completely different role from one team to another. So before we begin a discussion of the types of roles, let's first take a look at some of general definitions of what a role is. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, a role is the position or purpose that someone or something has in a situation, organization, society, or relationship. That is a fairly broad definition. Bing phrases things slightly differently by describing a role as the function assumed or part played by a person or thing in a particular situation. Collins Dictionary adds to their definition by describing a role as the part played by a person in a particular social setting, influenced by his or her expectations of what is appropriate. In other words, a role is not just an isolated set of actions an individual takes. The role is influenced by both what the individual sees as their function and the expectations of others regarding the individual's functions. These definitions all have in common the idea that there is an individual and a situation or social setting. I think all of you are probably familiar with the idea of roles from watching movies, videos, and television. You can also think of roles as the characters that people play: hero, heroine, good cop, bad cop. Before we delve into some of the roles that people play in a team at the workplace, I'd like to start by asking you to think about a team that you are currently on or one that you have been a part of recently. What roles can you identify from that experience? These can be positive or negative. Before we go on to the next slide, pause the video and write a few examples down. You don't necessarily have to give them names, you can just write descriptions of the behaviors that you see. As we go through the lecture, refer back to your list and look for overlap in your descriptions. As we have found with motivation, there are many different ways to describe people's behaviors and reasons for acting in a particular way. The same is true with roles people play within a team. Although there are several different role typologies, we are going to focus on Belbin's 3 categories of team roles. This is also sometimes referred to as Belbin's 9 roles. That's because there are 3 roles for each category. The categories are thought-oriented, action-oriented, and people-oriented. As you might guess, thought-oriented roles are related to ideas and cognitive processing. The people who act in thought-oriented roles are critical thinkers who may generate new ideas, perform cost-benefit analyses, or have special expertise or skills. Action-oriented roles are played by individuals who actually do the work and make sure that deadlines are met. They take plans and turn them into actions. Without them, the ideas would stay ideas instead of becoming a reality. People-oriented roles are those focused on developing and maintaining relationships. Performing these roles requires soft skills and a focus on support and facilitating team cohesion. Each of these 3 broad categories contain 3 specific roles. Thought-oriented roles deal mainly with ideas and abstractions. Belbin describes 3 thought-oriented roles: the plant, the monitor-evaluator, and the specialist. I have compiled some descriptions you might find of each, as well as potential weaknesses that have been identified. We will start with the plants. The plants are creative individuals who are good at generating new ideas and new ways of doing things, and solving difficult problems. Plants are innovators and unconventional thinkers, which allows them to find novel solutions to difficult problems. They are often introverts who thrive on praise. While every team needs a plant, that doesn't mean that having one makes things go smoothly. As unconventional thinkers, they dislike rules and ignore constraints, and they can lack attention to detail. Plants think big, and because of this, they can sometimes be impractical. Their preference for working alone, along with their forgetfulness and lack of attention to detail, can lead to poor communication with the team. They do well with praise and recognition, but can be sensitive and rigid when receiving criticism. Plants are definitely an asset to the team, but it's important to be aware of their potential weaknesses and balance them out with other roles. According to Indeed.com, monitor evaluators make decisions based on facts and rational thinking, as opposed to emotions and instincts. They tend to be serious people who are good at critical thinking and strategic planning. They are also effective decision makers and are considered to be objective or impartial because they tend not to form social relationships with their coworkers. Monitor evaluators shine in the face of a challenge that requires their particular skill set. However, these individuals can come off as critical and cold, and they aren't very good at inspiring or motivating others. The specialist is a valued expert who tends to be a loner like the monitor evaluators. They are focused, dedicated to maintaining their expertise, and proactive. Without their technical expertise, the team would be unable to achieve their goals. However, their contributions tend to be limited to their area, and they can get bogged down in technicalities. They also might tend to get too focused on their status as experts. Okay, take a minute to look back at your list of roles that you wrote. Had you described any roles similar to these? Now that you have these definitions, can you look back at any of the teams you have participated in or observed and name people who played these roles? Do you recognize yourself in any of these descriptions? Next, we have the action-oriented roles: the shaper, the implementer, and the completer-finisher. Shapers are achievement-oriented extroverts who serve as inspirational and positive forces within the team. They enjoy a challenge and thrive under pressure. They tend to be driven and persistent problem solvers, always looking for improvement. Unlike many, they enjoy productive conflict because of the improvements that it can generate. Shapers aren't always appreciated, as they are willing to challenge norms and can be seen as being argumentative and pushy by others. They also have a more directive management style. Although they are essential to a team, it is important to be aware that they should be balanced with people-centered or people-oriented roles. Implementers are organizers who appreciate order and structure. They are practical executioners who get things done efficiently and effectively. These are the doers in the team who ensure that goals become tangible successes. They are reliable, self-disciplined individuals who can also be self-sacrificing for the sake of the team. Although they are absolutely vital to team success, they do have weaknesses. They tend to dislike change, especially if it is change simply for the sake of change. They also tend to be inflexible and require evidence to be persuaded to change. The completer-finisher is the role that puts the final polish on things. They are detail-oriented, time-urgent perfectionists. They are conscientious and have introverted tendencies. They have high expectations for themselves and for others. They prioritize quality and meeting or exceeding standards. They are especially valuable in organizations where precision and meeting deadlines are important. Completer-finishers also have their weaknesses. They sometimes worry unnecessarily, and because of their strong personal standards, they find it difficult to delegate to others. Okay, now looking back at your list of roles, do any of the action-oriented roles overlap with descriptions you identified? Do you identify with any of the action-oriented roles? Can you put names to these roles from previous experience? The last of Belbin's categories is people-oriented. Here we have the coordinator, the team worker, and the resource investigator. Coordinators are natural leaders who clarify goals, recognize talent, delegate effectively, and seek to build consensus democratically. They tend to know which people will be best for particular tasks. They have excellent interpersonal and communication skills and seek to help others reach their individual objectives. In general, they are seen as likable. A good coordinator is a wonderful thing. However, they are not without their potential weaknesses. They can sometimes be seen as manipulative. They might delegate away too much of their personal responsibility, or they might charm others into doing more work than the other was assigned. Coordinators are often in management positions, as are shapers. However, they have very different styles. Whereas the shaper manages by directives, coordinators prefer a more democratic approach that includes open communication. Team workers are natural diplomats and negotiators. They pick up on signals and can adapt to react appropriately. They tend to be cooperative and helpful and want the team to get along. They tend to be extroverts who are sensitive to the needs of others. They also recognize when assistance is needed and are willing to step in and help. Potential weaknesses for team workers include being indecisive in high-pressure situations, avoiding confrontation, and their desire to remain neutral may irritate those who feel they are clearly on the right side of a conflict. Lastly, we have the resource investigator. The resource investigator is extroverted and energetic, innovative and curious, and they crave variety. They are talented networkers and negotiators who develop important contacts and explore opportunities. Up to this point, the roles we have discussed have been primarily seen within the context and confines of the team itself. However, the resource investigator interfaces successfully with external stakeholders and resource providers to ensure the team achieves its goals. Potential weaknesses for the resource investigator include a tendency to be overly optimistic, to lose interest quickly, and to prefer social stimulation to detail orientation. In reflecting on the people-oriented roles, did any of these descriptions overlap with your list of roles? Do you identify with any of these roles? Can you identify others who play any of these roles in teams you've been on? When it comes to measuring team roles or assessing which roles individuals on your team play, there are two common ways. The first is a survey assessment, and it involves some sort of survey or test. These tend to be proprietary, meaning that the creator of the role typology owns the survey or test used to create the role profiles. Another way to measure the roles is to have a trained expert observe the team in action. There are often monetary costs that are associated with both types of assessment, but not always. It depends on the role typology you choose. I have focused on the Belbin typology because of its popularity, but I've listed links at the end of this lecture to articles on different typologies if you're interested in seeing what variety there is out there. Now that we have talked in detail about the roles, let's talk about how that information can be used to improve team effectiveness. First, as a manager, you can improve the effectiveness of a team by clearly defining the team's purpose. The goal of the team is going to determine the relative need for specific roles to be represented. Don't just ask for volunteers for a team. Be deliberate in considering who on your team is best suited to play the roles that are needed. If it is important to keep team size small, then you'll need to look for employees who can play more than one role. Each role involves the use of a different but sometimes overlapping set of skills. You need to make sure that you have people with the technical, problem-solving, and interpersonal skills necessary for the team to be successful. Next, understanding the roles can help reduce dysfunctional conflict in the team. When each member is self-aware regarding the part they play and their potential weaknesses, they can better carry out their functions and minimize the potential for their weaknesses to affect the team. Knowing and understanding the roles that others play and their potential weaknesses allows members to see in advance where conflicts might occur. It also allows members to be proactive in bringing out the best in one another. Lastly, remember it's important to separate the person from the role they play. While it is important to be aware of potential weaknesses associated with a particular role, do not assume that just because a person plays a particular role that they will automatically exhibit the common weaknesses associated with that role. And now, some questions for self-reflection. Which of Belbin's roles did you identify with most? Why? Did you find yourself having difficulty choosing just one role? Which roles seem the most compatible with one another? Why? Which roles are most likely to encounter conflicts with one another? Why is this? Which skills from this class correspond to which of Belbin's roles? How might the skills or roles change in importance through the different stages in team development? Forming, norming, storming, and performing. This concludes the video on team roles. I hope you found the information useful and interesting. If you have any questions about topics from this video, please post them to the Student Questions discussion board in Blackboard. If you are intellectually curious and would like to learn more, please stay tuned for the sources and additional resources for this video. Thanks for watching.